So, what we got here is the S&P, a nice little horseshoe look. Nvidia earnings came out last night. Yay. I'm really not too big on that myself. Um, I mean, you think about Nvidia, they make, really fancy chips for really high-end, video cards for gamers. There, I'll just say it that way. Um, and of course, their earnings came out, they kind of blew everything out of the water. And this is a chart of actually the S&P. And you can kind of see after hours, they had these two big green bars up. Everybody's all happy and everything like that. And then when Asia opened up, it just kind of went flat. And then when Europe opened up, they just started selling stuff off. And we're right back to basically where we ended yesterday. They've kind of erased everything and just said, well, do over. So they weren't, too impressed or anything like that by it. Even Nvidia, if you even look at how they've done here, uh, they kind of look the same way. There's their earnings. There's two big green bars, and then they've come back. Now they hadn't come back where they closed yesterday, but they're back below 140. And so everybody's going to be kind of happy about it from the open here, that blue bar that you see right there, to now. If you shorted the thing, you made money, right? You're up about what, $4. If you bought it from yesterday, then you're up about $2. So Bulls won from yesterday, Bears won today. Kind of a no do nothing kind of deal. And there it is. So there are some, there were some other stocks that came out. This was kind of crazy. Um, this is Viva Systems, and their earnings came out and they went from 235 to 285. Even when they kind of started out this morning, right here, they even shot them up some more, and they've kind of settled back a little bit, but still. Now that one has stayed up. But to see, there's a lot of other earnings that coming out, and just because one stock comes out, everybody was focusing on Nvidia. But you think about today, you had some other fairly large companies come out with earnings. Now this is Best Buy. I think a lot of people have heard of Best Buy. Um, their earnings came out, they kind of jiggled them around, and they ended up just kind of selling them off once we got to the open here in the old US. But I always kind of look at all the earnings as a whole as opposed to just one stock. One stock doesn't make a market. Heck, the S&P 500 has 500 of the stocks in them, right? So, but it does have a pretty big stick behind it, old Nvidia does. But I think when you start looking at all the other ones, it kind of does the same thing. We just kind of need to kind of step back and kind of let it happen. Now, I'm not ever one to try to guess what markets are trying to do or anything like that. I always kind of let it happen and then kind of go based off of that in itself. So, that's just kind of the way it is. Another thing we had come out this morning was good old GDP. Um, Now, if you don't understand GDP real well, everybody knows it's gross domestic product and everything like that, but it only comes out once a quarter. Everybody thinks it comes out every month. It doesn't. It comes out once a quarter. So here we are in the second quarter. Let me just use this quarter here. And next week we start June. June's the end of the second quarter, right? So the GDP number that we get in July takes 1 month, close the quarter off. We go a month. That number that we get in July is actually the very first number you get for GDP for that quarter. Market will move off of that. The next couple of months, you're just getting revisions of the original number that they had. So you look at the GDP number today, and the market didn't do a whole lot just because, well, they go, okay, well, they're just revising the revision. It was down 0.3, now it's down 0.2%. Okay, whatever. So, but you have to remember the GDP number that we ended up with the quarter before was at 2.4%. So we're still a little bit on the negative side of it, which that's halfway to a recession. Two negative quarters of GDP is a recession. So that's what they're kind of worried about. Are we going to be actually going into recession and all this stuff? But we also had jobless claims coming out this morning, which they're perking up a little bit, which isn't all that great of a thing. But we would expect that with a lot of companies laying folks off and everything like that. And we're kind of picked that up a little bit. Now, tomorrow we're going to get PCE, which is basically personal income and spending. Um, personal, uh, what is that thing? Personal consumption, and expenditures. I guess I got to get their verbiage right. But it's basically personal income and spending. And they're going to see if people are actually saving more, saving less, spending more, spending less. Are they spending more than they're saving? Are they, saving more than they're spending? So on and so forth. And that'll tell us if, the economy's trying to slow down or if it's still at the same pace and all of that. So at the end of the month, we get a lot of this. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting today also, um, uh, to-do, to-do, here we go. Um, you can see this chart. This is a chart of good old-fashioned West Texas Intermediate crude. This is crude oil. And you can kind of see kind of the same thing. We kind of rallied up last night. Europe opens up and we kind of sold off. Um, on that green bar that you see over here toward the right side, that's the EIA Petroleum Status Report. And it came out and we had some pretty big draws in crude oil. We were down about almost 3 million barrels. And they were literally expecting a surplus of 1 million barrels. So they missed that by 4 million, right? Even gasoline, they were expecting a surplus, and we actually got a draw of 2.5 million barrels in that. And really, it didn't do a whole lot to crude oil. It was just like, oh, yay, we have a draw on crude. Usually that'll shoot crude back up. And so I was kind of scratching my head a little bit thinking, what's going on here? We just had crude oil inventories at a big draw, which means we have less. So I guess the thought is, well, with the GDP number, if we're going to go into recession, there's going to be less demand. So if we have less crude oil, who cares, right? And that's kind of the way it traded. It was just like, yeah, who cares? Because there's not going to be that much demand. And here it is, the summer months. We're starting the summer months. We just had Memorial Day here, so officially summer here in the United States, if you will. Um, and there's usually a lot of people driving. There's a lot of demand for gasoline because everybody's, traveling somewhere, going to the beaches or going to the mountains or going to wherever it may be, grandma's house. And yet, crude's really just kind of, shrugging its shoulders, saying, "Yeah, yeehaw." And that might be another reason. Well, another reason why, maybe also, is we got an OPEC meeting going on. And good old OPEC, they're out there discussing, production of this and production of that, and how much more oil we're going to pump out, how much less oil we're going to pump out, whatever it may be. Right now, it's on the more production side, as opposed to less production side. But even with the big kind of, pullback that we had, we were up at 63 bucks. Now we're back down to 60, and a half basically. They're still holding above $60. So kind of keep your eye on that $60 level in crude. It'll kind of tell you whether it's really more positive or really more negative. And that's the thing. So, um, but we've got that. Another thing that's kind of going on, um, is I guess in Venezuela, of course, our U.S. companies like Chevron, have assets down there, and I guess they've been kind of blocked from the oil assets and stuff like that from the previous administration. And I guess Trump kind of said, no, you can have that. We need the oil. And so they're letting Chevron go back in there. But another thing that's going on in Venezuela is they're trying to take over some Guyana oil fields. So they're, sending their military over to Guyana and killing their military. And now we've got a little battle going on down there of who gets to have whose oil. So that might kind of shake up the oil markets a little bit if it kind of gets, awry. And I don't know how that's going to come about. And knowing Trump, if that does happen, he might just go down there and thump Venezuela on the head somehow, some way, some shape or form. So kind of keep your ear to the ground on that one. It's not being talked about anywhere. I just have been kind of reading about it here and there. So even listening to the newses or anything like that, you don't hear stuff like that, but it's there. So we'll just kind of keep our eye on that a little bit. Also, um, with that going on, I've been kind of always kind of follow along with some. See if I get this right. Ding. There we go. Um, we'll go over to a swing chart on this one. It's kind of got pulled back with crude oil today. Um, this is Constellation Energy. I always kind of like them. They seem to move pretty well. And you can see they've got a nice little uptrend going here, regardless of what crude oil's been doing. It's getting yanked back today just because of, I think, the news down there in Venezuela, plus the inventories and stuff like that. But um, I'm would like to see it don't get back above that 310, 312 area. And if it does that, well, we can probably move up to the 320 to 325. So kind of keep your eye on that a little bit. You're going to have some ups and downs. Nothing ever goes straight up, nothing ever goes straight down, right? So just kind of keep your eye on that and kind of see what it does. But I kind of like this stock. When you start looking at other things going on. We're actually ending, the month tomorrow, last trading day, I'll put it that way. So we'll actually start going into a brand new month. And a lot of our contracts are starting to roll over. Bonds are now on September. Gold is now on August gold. It's marked up about $30 over what we had on our June gold. So but gold right now, if you're looking for something that's up today, gold and silver are up, even the bonds are up. Everything else seems to be down a little bit, and but pretty much where we were yesterday. So even though we've had a big pullback, basically we're kind of where we ended yesterday, and nothing to yell or scream about or anything like that. It's just kind of one of those. Overnight it went up, overnight it went down, and we're back to where we started. So. But what's we've got the PCE numbers coming out tomorrow. Even we've got a couple of earnings coming out tonight between Costco, Dell, Marvel, Zscaler, Ulta Beauty, Cooper Companies. So we've got those coming out, and tomorrow we get good old Campbell Soup. So if you like Campbell Soup, their earnings are coming out tomorrow. So. Um, but anyway, that's kind of where we're at, and I'm interested to kind of see how we end up. We're going to be up on the month, so we're going to have a positive month, um, and we'll see how we start out the next month and how we can end up the quarter. So, but let's kind of see what goes on from there. But I appreciate everybody kind of tuning in, and there's so much stuff going on these days. It's kind of hard for me to keep up on them. So I just kind of cherry pick here and there and kind of go from there, but try to find the stuff that most people aren't talking about and everything like that. So, but anyway, but you all have a great and wonderful day and wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.